This is Kayla Foster interviewing Marquis Lofton for the HBCU Radio Preservation Project. It is currently 2:43 p.m. on July 8th, 2025, on a good, nice Wednesday. This interview is being recorded at KPVU Studios in Prairie View A&M University in Prairie View, Texas, in their podcast studios, might I add, which are really nice and cozy. How you doing, Mr. Lofton?
I'm doing fantastic, and I definitely want to big up KPVU TV as well, because we're sitting in their podcast space.
We're sitting in KPVU TV's podcast space.
Yeah, but we're a team, KPVU Media.
Yeah, KPVU Media. That's how we're going to address that. I know that's right. So how are you feeling? How's your day been going?
Man, it's been fantastic. It's been fantastic. It's been a great day, a lot of meetings, and, of course, what we're doing. And also very productive, added a lot of new music to the radio station today and found some new artists and just excited about that.
Okay, good. So before we really jump into any deep conversations, could you please state your full name and your relationship to KPVU for the
Absolutely, and I appreciate you saying it correctly. It's Marquis, and you said it right, Marquis Lofton, the program director of 91.3 KPVU, and also the advisor for PVU Student Radio Organization.
Like you just said, you've been doing a lot today. They got you doing your thing, and we talked a little bit earlier, you wear a lot of hats, and how does that make you feel to just kind of be the go-to person here at KPVU?
Well, I appreciate that people want to use me. You know what I'm saying? I definitely appreciate that. But there's a lot of go-to people, I think, with KPVU. And, of course, we have our great general manager, Eddie Robinson, and then also the student radio organization. I mean, they are amazing. They really are the key component to a lot of the things we do at KPVU.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so we're definitely going to take a big chunk of time to definitely get into KPVU. We're going to talk about, all things that are happening right here. But we really want to get to know the person, right? Let's get to know who Mr. Marquis is, right? So tell me a little bit about just kind of you. Tell me when and where you were born.
Okay. Well, I was born actually in Washington, D.C. at George Washington Hospital. And I lived in Washington, D.C., went to school, and I went out to Maryland, Largo, Maryland, and attended high school out in Largo. And, always been a musical person. Always, D.C. has been always a musical place. The DMV area, you hear a lot of go-go music and a lot of stuff like that. And so that was kind of my background. And I wanted to go to college after high school, and I went to Clark Atlanta University. And the Clark Atlanta University, I attended there when I would call it the Atlanta Renaissance. That's what a lot of people call it, because this was a time when Atlanta became hot Atlanta. You know what I'm saying? And so that was like the mid-'90s. And also they had the Olympics and all that kind of stuff. But and then after I worked at Clark Atlanta University at their radio station, Jazz 91.9 WCLK, and also was one of the founders of the first student radio station. It's called WSTU. And that's the first student radio organization in the Atlanta University Center. And so I was one of the founders of that organization. And I also worked with the Jazz 91.9 WCLK. And that's where I met John Hughes, who was the general manager at the time at WCLK. And I kept in touch with John. And, I was able to, I graduated, I worked in Atlanta's radio market, which is really one of the top markets. V103, WAOK, 790 Sports Zone. Spent some time with Cartoon Network. Just did a lot of different things. And John, I kept in touch with John, and John came down here to Prairie View. And when he came to Prairie View, he called me one day because he had a technical problem. And I was in Atlanta, and he called me, and I helped him. I walked him through his technical problem on the phone. And he was like, well, you know what, why don't you be like a consultant? So I was working from Atlanta for 2 years and working remotely with KPVU. And then one day he said, hey, man, we got a position open, but you gotta move. You got to leave Atlanta. And I was like, leave Atlanta? And I was like, you know what, good change of pace. So I was in Atlanta for a long time. And also I was excited about the position because it was very hands-on with the students. Very hands-on. It was almost like, this is your ball of clay, and we want you to come and mold it. as opposed to the station I came from. They kind of had their identity, and they, they're like one of the number one stations, jazz stations in Atlanta. But here, it was almost like, you know what, let's make this into something. You make it into something special for the students, a special experience for the students, and let's really turn this into something. So me and John worked together for probably about 4 years, and then he passed away back in 2022. And that was kind of tough to lose John, because he was really the person who brought me down here, and it almost felt like I didn't have anybody, almost like he was like my connection to come down here. And when he passed away, for a moment, I just felt lost for a minute. And even the radio station suffered, because for years there was no general manager, and because of it was a sudden passing, and so it kind of had everybody all shook up. And so there wasn't a general manager for a long time, and there wasn't even an engineer. It was like, it really was tough, for me. But what really saved the day, again, was the students. It was all PVU. It was like they came in, swooped in, PVU Radio Student Radio Organization. They came in and swooped in. And it's like they leveled up. Like they stepped it up. Mm-hmm. It was like, Mr. Lofton, what do you need? You need this? You need that? So I'll do it, And that right there,
Take it down.
Excuse me. But they are really, like, amazing. Like, they almost like my shorties. You know what I'm saying? And I didn't know I was going to get like this.
No, that's good.
Talking about it. But I never really talked about losing John, So, but yeah, so, after that, then, but it was kind of like a blessing in a way too, because everything that John wanted, it started happening after he passed away. He wanted the students to do great things. They doing great things. They ended up becoming the top organization. They didn't win, but they were nominated, and they were nominated with the top Campus Activities Board and the Student Government Association. Those are the two biggest organizations on every campus,
Mm-hmm.
And PVU Radio was out here talking to everybody, and of course we provide that oversight. And, just try to raise the next generation of media professionals. So that's where we at, training. I just got another opportunity where I'm getting ready to get into teaching. And, I just the journey. I'm in love with the journey.
And I love to hear that. I definitely have a couple of threads I want to pull from everything you just said, right?
Yeah.
And first starting off with sending my condolences to you about the loss of Mr. Hughes. When I was doing some research on you, that was one of the first articles that popped up, how basically Mr. Hughes brought you over here, and he credits you for really propelling this station forward musically and visually. And so I do want to sit here and say that from me sitting as an undergrad student, there was a student here at Prairie View. Her name is Sincere Journey. And I was who don't know her, right?
Shout out to Sincere.
And I'm like, one of the main things I kept saying with being able to come here today, I'm like, I just can't wait to talk to somebody to just know about the opportunity that you all provide to the students, the way that you kind of push the students to want to go big or go home. And I think that everything you just said is also a representation of just who you are as a person, aside from the job, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you care and you are passionate about inspiring students, but also equipping students to make sure that students have these same opportunities that you were granted, even by most of your mentors and others like Mr. Hughes, et cetera. So that's just for me to say that.
Yeah, I was blessed with a lot of great mentors. You know what I'm saying?
And you are, I'm more than sure you're a great mentor to the students that are under you. Like you said, they're your shorties.
Yeah.
I love that.
They might not like that, but I'm like, I'm my shorties.
It's like, because when I was a station manager, I just used to refer to everybody as my babies. And
babies, okay.
We're Kayla's babies. And I'm like, yeah, of course. So,
there you go.
But let's kind of go back to you when you were a jit, music, right? You said that you grew up around music.
Yes.
I'm interested to know what was some of your favorite music growing up, and tell me a little bit about who are the people around you who probably influenced some of those music takes from you.
Oh, absolutely. Well, it kind of started with my school that I went to. I was my grade school. I attended the Capitol Hill cluster schools, and they were kind of like a talented kind of thing where you had a lot of music and stuff like that. And so, but DC and the DMV area is really the regional music is go-go music, and so I grew up seeing a lot of bands, bands. We played. You would. It wasn't nothing for there to be a band in your neighborhood. Somebody got a band in the neighborhood, and it really encouraged people to want to play instruments. We were seeing, the conga player, and he's like a celebrity, and we like, oh, I want to play congos. You know what I'm saying? So it was really, we were getting music. We were getting a deep set of music, and we didn't know it. We were getting jazz. Chuck Brown is the godfather of go-go music. And Chuck Brown, a lot of stuff that they were playing was jazz. So they playing Mr. Magic and Grover Washington Jr. and different things like that. And so go-go was so, it's like a mixed pot because, somebody might play a Chris Brown song, but then they might turn around and play like an old Al Green song. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's a very diverse place. I took piano lessons very young. I had a piano in the house. When I got to high school, I played the trumpet.
Can I ask, you started off on the piano. Was that something that you were just interested in doing, or was that something like maybe your parents put you into?
Well, yeah, no, it was a piano in my grandma's house. So it was one of those things you walk past it and you just, you always play with it when you walk by it. And so I was a kid who could play by ear. Mm-hmm. So
lucky you.
I played, there was a song called We Are the World. It was an old song. And I learned how to play that little melody line. And that's when they was like, oh, put him in some lessons. And so they put me in lessons with a piano teacher named Mr. Lewis. And I was in all that, music. And so then I started rapping. I fell in love with hip-hop, around, probably when I was around 12, 13. I really got into hip-hop and knew every song. I started a group with my homeboy Dennis. And,
what era was this? When was this?
This was I would say this was the early to mid 90s.
Okay.
Actually, I would say the early to mid, because I graduated high school in 95, so a long time ago. But it was early to mid 90s, so it's we're getting A Tribe Called Quest, and we're getting
hip hop is alive.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of The Box. It was a channel called The Box, and they would play all these videos. So we would get everything from UTFO to MC Light to Sweet Tea to, we would get everything. Heavy D and the Boys, Uptown, Kicking It, Andre Harrell, and all of that. And so I was a big hip hop head. Public Enemy, NWA. I was into all of that, and I loved it. And it really, there was a pro-black movement that was going on in hip-hop, too, because you had, X-Clan, and everybody's wearing African medallions, and we doing leather hats, and all of that. So that was a great time. I started DJing in high school. I formed a hip-hop group with my friend Dennis and my friend Damon. We were called No Home Training.
Okay.
And we had some stuff we used to do, and then I also joined a go-go band later on. The band was called High Influence, and they eventually changed their name. But I got to really play music, got to rap. I was always the dude that rapped, that knew all the songs, and we'd be at the park and somebody started beating on the table and everybody started looking at me, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, so it was a lot of good music. Now I've actually become a musician. I've been producing music myself with my buddy Jamal Ahmad, who's also an award-winning syndicated radio host in Atlanta, and we have been producing under the name the Dangerfeel Newbies. And Dangerfeel Newbie is actually a historical figure who was part of John Brown's abolitionist army. And there's a whole story behind that, so if you get a chance, check that out. But, all the music and the stuff that I got from D.C. and the DMV, Maryland, all of that really kind of set me up to to love music.
I love to hear that, honestly, especially kind of with your, like you said, having the piano in your granny's house. Us too. We did too. And same for my brother, learned playing by ear.
Yes.
We didn't put him in lessons, but we were all in the church, so it's like you were going to learn some way, some way, somehow. And then just kind of thinking like you said, you played the piano, then you went off to play the trumpet.
Yeah, I played the trumpet in high school. And that was cool. And then but when I got to Clark, Atlanta, I actually was trying to play in the marching band there.
I was going to ask. Okay.
So I wanted to play the baritone. Well, no, I wanted to play the trumpet. But they told me that there are no more trumpet positions. However, the baritone is the same fingering as the trumpet. So I was like, okay. And I wasn't fast at reading music.
Okay.
And I think that's what kind of put me at a disadvantage because I just wasn't fast. I mean, the band director comes in, he throws the sheets on everybody's stand. 1, 2, 3, bah, 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 and they just get right into it. And I was always like, can I take this home and look at it?
Yeah, I'm like, give me a second, please.
Yeah, give me a minute. So yeah, music is it's just my life, man. I mean, it's really my life. I mean, even this past weekend we were working on our new Dangerfeel Newbies project. But yeah, music has always been there for me. And so that's one of the things I love about KPVU is being able to share just really good music and connect with folks.
Absolutely. And we're going to get there because I was going to say, I did my research. And so I definitely saw Dangerfeel Newbie come up, and you all have an album called Harriet.
Harriet,
and
so my first album.
Went through some of those, and I was kind of just looking at how you all have Harriet, and then you have like her 3 times, like her name is 3 times on the album, but I see you have it set up as intro, interlude, outro, right? Yeah. And I like that. Like, I like that idea of kind of how you all were playing through it. But we're going to get there to kind of talk about a little bit of that cultural significance for you.
Yes.
Well, let's kind of run back a little bit more, right?
Okay, sure.
Music head, I'm sure, if if your folks can get you off the piano, like, that mean, like, everybody else in the house just probably just knew that music was just inevitably going to be a part of who you all probably were. Tell me a little bit about your parents. Like, what were they like? How did they respond to you and your musical endeavors?
Oh, well, pretty supportive. I mean, I lived with my grandma coming up early when I was really young, but I also but I eventually moved with my mom.
Okay.
And
tell me about that.
My grandma was she was very encouraging as far as music. I mean, I think she was one of the ones that made sure that I had my lessons and all that kind of stuff. My mom, she was a little interested with the music stuff because I think she has a perception a little bit of the music, you being in these dark clubs and you in this smoky club.
Oh, kind of like Sinner's plot, the idea of Sinners.
You out here, driving, coming from the club late at night, just being a mom, you know what I'm saying? She always was kind of more concerned with my safety in the music
the
stuff.
Atmosphere of music.
Yeah, so I always try to reassure her, oh, Mom, everything's good, you know what I'm saying? And so I used to kind of feel like that she was kind of indifferent a little bit. I felt like that, but what I realized is no, she wasn't. She's just concerned about the safety of her child. You know what I'm saying? And so, but what was really cool is that we had a show last about 2 weeks ago in Atlanta, and I told her, you need to be there. Like, you need to be in it because she's never seen us.
Yeah.
She's never seen us there. So, she was a little bit like, flying, I don't want to fly and all this stuff. But she came, and it was a great show.
Good.
And it made me feel so good to be able to do what I do in front of her, for her to be able to see all this craziness that I be talking about. And she saw it. And I think she was like, oh. When she saw the show, she said, oh, okay, I didn't know y'all got down like that.
Yeah.
So... and now she's singing, actually, which is interesting because she's joined the choir, and now she's singing. So what I try to do is I try to do all the stuff that I kind of wanted her to do for me. So I always encourage her. I always tell her, great job. I always tell her little exercises. Mom, you should, check your diaphragm when you sing and, all that kind of stuff. And so it's almost like I get to kind of do what I kind of wanted her to do.
Yeah. That's sweet. I think that goes to show kind of like how you have learned to cope with maybe, her not being all in, and then kind of how you, again, like you said, kind of redirecting her to say like, hey, probably this is what I wanted you to do, but this is what I'm going to do for you. And I think that goes into a part about kind of, as we grow up, we humanize our parents, and we no longer just see them as parent, but we see them as that individual, who they are, which is kind of why I was, interested to know a little bit about that background, you growing up with your grandma and playing in a church and
then my dad was an accountant. Okay. And he was like the coolest dude. I mean, he's not here anymore, but he was the coolest dude. Like, I mean, I got a photo album with like all these old pictures of him, and I mean, fly.
Tell me about him.
He would wear. His name was Dwight Lofton. And he would wear, excuse me, I'm a little stuffy too. He would wear like just the best clothes. But the thing is that my dad was kind of like a hustler. So he was the person who had a car before anybody in the family had a car. Like before mom and dad had a car, he got a luxury car. You know what I'm saying? He had a Mark 8,
he got
a
it
Lincoln.
on.
And what it was he was working. My dad was from New York, so they from the Bronx, and he was in Harlem working with this other gentleman who had like a store and had a clothing store. It was like this guy, I believe his name was Puppy, and he had a clothing store, like a liquor store, like he had like the block, you know what I'm saying? And so my dad worked with Puppy, and so my dad he went to Howard University, so he would take clothes from New York and he would bring them down to D.C. and sell clothes. So he was just fly. Like, he just was a fly dude. I'm always seeing pictures of him, and it's like 3 girls all draped on him, and you know what I'm saying? But he was the word that I kind of learned from him was nonchalant. He was very nonchalant. Like, he just was just real cool. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And when he passed away, it was crazy because we were getting closer. It was like we were getting closer. So, but
Can I ask that what age you were when he passed away?
I was about 27.
Okay.
Yeah, I was doing my last year in college because I dropped out for a little while and went back, and I was in my last year, and that happened during my last year. And so what it kind of told me was that was just kind of him being like, man, just go ahead and finish, man.
Yeah.
Go ahead and knock it out. So New York.
Can I ask, was he always like nonchalant your whole life, and did like that ever impact you in any kind of way?
Not necessarily. I mean, it made me kind of be cool sometimes. Being around him, you start chilling, and you start kind of, you know what I'm saying? So it kind of gave me some of that. I mean, when I heard it from somebody and they said, "Oh, you nonchalant," I was like,
yeah.
I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
Somebody called me nonchalant, so I guess that's where I get it from. I guess you know.
It's funny because like now people look at nonchalant as such a like, it's so negative. It has such a negative connotation to it, and people are like, "Well, you need to be a little more chalant. Like, get some chalant about you. You need to be more chalant." So tell me about kind of what music did your dad play? Kind of how was he in the house? Like, what was the vibes around? Well, I know you said you used to be cool with them.
This is gonna be so random.
Okay.
My dad loved Jaheim. Like, Jaheim was his dude,
okay.
man. I'm talking about he had all the albums, Ghetto Story,
really?
Ghetto. Because all Jaheim albums start with Ghetto
songs.
Yeah. My dad, he was like, man, he put on some Jaheim and he started riding around. It was something about that Jaheim. I guess it was Teddy Pendergrass thing or something.
I can see that.
But my dad, I would get in the car with him, and you look in the side pocket, and it's just all Jaheim albums, But he was into that, and then his brothers, they were really into music because my uncle Rodney, who was his brother, he was the one that really got me into music because he's sending me this new hip hop music from New York down to D.C.
Yeah,
and so Rodney was really the one that really got me into music and making music and all that. We still talk. He's 20 years older than me, and he still will be calling me about something I haven't heard before. He'll be like, "Yo, you heard that new one, BX the Plug?" And I'll be like, "What you know about that?
What you know about Big X?" Yeah.
But he searches through streaming, Apple and, different streaming. And he just be finding stuff. He'll be like, "You heard this?" And he'll send me some music and stuff. But he also was encouraging for me to put something out. Like, you put something out, like, where's your music? You know what I mean? So just very encouraging. And it was 3 of them, my dad, my Uncle Rodney, and my Uncle Kevin. My Uncle Kevin has been very supportive as well. He was head of the American Hospital Association at one point. So he was meeting with a lot of people and doing big things and all that great stuff. So I'm blessed that, my dad, I had my dad, but even after he passed away, I still, my uncles, they're very much in my life.
That's good. I was going to ask you kind of about, how did community play a role in your life growing up? And did your community being, whether it was your immediate family or kind of some of those extended, were they any help in helping you or kind of were they any influence in you choosing school and kind of what you did through school and what you did through high school or how you acted through high school?
Well, my mom wanted me to go to, my first choice was actually Johnson C. Smith in Charlotte. That's where I was going to go. And, of course, everybody from my area goes to, like, Morgan State and Howard and stuff like that. But I wanted to go to Johnson C. Smith. That didn't quite work out because I was really into music. I was into this group called Outkast, and Goody Mob. And then I'm seeing L.A. and Babyface. They just got an office down there in Atlanta. And then here comes TLC and there's Dallas Austin and Jermaine Dupri. And I was like, and then I saw that the Olympics were coming to Atlanta. And so I was like, oh, I got to, Atlanta about to jump. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so I tried to change my mind, So she was like, okay, well, if you want to go to Atlanta, why don't you go to Morehouse? She gave me the brochure, and I looked on it, and I saw all these guys on the front. And I was like, I don't want to go to that school. Well, Spelman is right across the street. I was like, no, I want to do a co-ed school. So I chose Clark Atlanta University. So.
And tell me,
good old CAU.
Yeah, CAU. Come on now, who don't want to go to Clark Atlanta? Yeah, it's funny that you say that was the vibe back then. That you were like, oh, it's jumping out there. Yeah. But even to this day, we're like students who are undergrad and just like Clark Atlanta is one of the first schools, or I have to just say probably top 5 schools for sure. When a student is asked, well, what school would you like to go to? Clark Atlanta is going to be named. And I mean, and let's just acknowledge
it's a great school.
It's a great school. Tell us about your great school.
It's a great school. Clark Atlanta University was, it's like my second family almost. I attended CAU. I joined clubs, joined the radio club and worked with the radio station. But we were a little different because students weren't really engaged with the radio station.
Tell me about the campus culture.
Yeah.
Eager to hear.
Students weren't engaged with the radio station. It was like very rarely you see a few students because it was jazz. And because it was jazz, they was, they're into hip-hop. They into what they into.
Would you say that you had more of a stronger interaction with radio before you got to Clark Atlanta, like aside from the other students?
Absolutely. Because I grew up on Kathy Hughes, man. Kathy Hughes is the media mogul, you know what I'm saying? And I remember her first station was called 1450 WOL. And we used to listen to WOL. It was an AM station. We used to listen to WOL. And it's when I used to go to Watkins, that was an elementary school. We would ride by the radio station, and you could actually see inside the radio station. It was like glass, and you could see the people on the radio, and they would just be talking, and I would just be like, wow. And then you get home at night, and at 9 o'clock, they would switch to like hip-hop and go-go. So all day, they like talk. And then at night, Conan, the Moon Man, and all them guys, they would come, and they would play like some hip-hop and go-go. And so it was like, radio was it at the time. It's so many options and stuff now. But
what were some of, do you remember some of those DJ names you used to tune into?
Yeah. Donnie Simpson, Al B.D. It's me, Al B.D. I remember Al B.D. I remember Candy Shannon. It was a lot of DJs, and of course, the television, BT and Sherry Carter, and but I always remember Conan, the Weekend Warrior. That was his name. Conan, the Weekend Warrior, and the Moon Man. They were all from WOL. And at that time, hip-hop wasn't very segmented either. So you would hear MC Hammer, and then you might hear Salt and Pepper, and then you might hear, something that was from New York, and then you hear something from the West Coast, and Young MC. It wasn't all that, it wasn't segmented like that. So, yeah, radio was definitely, I went into radio. I was a DJ.
Yeah, you said
so to me, radio was that thing that was right next to what I kind of really wanted to do.
Are you speaking about when you were you started DJing in high school, or when you became a DJ in Clark Atlanta?
When I started DJing in high school,
Yeah,
it was like I kind of I really wanted to make my own music. But I think I got into radio as kind of like, like I almost want to do things like, say like a Ludacris or something, where Ludacris worked at a radio station and he turned that into an opportunity, you know what I'm saying? And so I was interested in doing that myself,
And so, like you said, at Clark Atlanta, the students really weren't engaging with the radio station. So tell me a little bit more about that campus culture and what you were witnessing there.
Yeah. I attended Clark Atlanta University with some really great people. Like I said, I had some great mentors and everything. But the students, they weren't really into the jazz music. However, we had a student. That's why we started our student radio organization. And we started our student radio organization. When I was there, DJ Drama was there. Don Cannon was there. DJ Sense. They were called the affiliates. And they were DJing. They used to DJ everything. They would DJ the cafeteria, but then they'd be DJing a party, and they DJ another party off campus. And so we had that. I had an accounting class with Bobby Valentino, and I had a class with Eva Marcel, and we had a class, a media class. And, it's like I had classes. Mason Betha went to Clark at one time, And it was just like a lot of energy, a lot of good energy. When I first got there, it was a lot of bass music. Bass music was like the music, was it like the song My Boo, Ghost Town DJs. Like you hear everything sounded like that when I first got to Atlanta. Okay. And then Master P comes and he come with the marching music, and the army stuff. And then you got the guys come with the snap music. And then you got Lil Jon with the crunk music. But I think we led by example too. Like when other students saw us in the jazz station, they wanted to come in and see what was going on. So we were the ones, I think, that kind of broke a cycle a little bit.
So tell me a little bit more about kind of just you being the founder of one of those stations. Like, what did that look like? What were those conversations between you and some of the other students on, we have to do something for ourselves?
Yeah. Well, the way it started was, it actually was a class project. That's how the student radio station at Clark started.
And what was those call letters for?
WSTU and students. And so Bill Clark, rest in peace, Bill Clark was the advisor for WSCU. He was the advisor. And he also taught a class. And so he said, I want you guys to put together your radio shows. And so we said, well, where? I don't have no tape or no deck or nothing like that. And he said, well, there's a room in the radio station, and it's in there. It has a microphone. It's basically a radio station inside the radio station. Mm-hmm. It was like this small room and that nobody used.
Right, something like a little closet in the back.
Something like that, yeah. And so we all did, went in there and recorded our projects, and we would sit in class and we would play them, and everybody would listen to everybody's radio show. And then what we found out from one of the engineers at Clark Atlanta University, one of the broadcast engineers, he said, hey, you guys know that there's a radio signal that comes out of that room? And we were like, no. And he said, yeah, it's a subcarrier radio signal. And now what a subcarrier frequency is, it's a frequency that kind of goes underneath the regular antenna, the regular waves. And so you got to have a special antenna to be able to get the subcarrier frequency. I think the military might use it a lot. When we found out that we had a subcarrier signal coming out that room, we was like, okay, we're about to buy some subcarrier radios, and we're going to start like giving them out to people. And we're also going to start like, if you're on the radio, I'm going to go out to the commons area with my radio, and I'm going to blast you while you're on the radio. And then when I get on the radio, you go out to the commons area and you blast me. And that's really how it kind of came about. It was like this we ordered these little radios. Mr. Clark, he ordered these little radios, and they had a switch. It was like a regular radio, and then when you flip the switch, you can get the subcarrier stuff. And so then we was like, well, let's put it in the cafeteria. Like, well, we have a captive audience in the cafeteria. So we went and bought speakers, and we like lined the walls in the cafeteria with speakers, and we'll play our radio station in there. And it just kind of blew up, man.
What was the response to it? Kind of, how were people?
How were they taking it?
Yeah.
I think they loved it. I think they just loved seeing us doing what they seen the professionals do. You know, like we were interviewing people. We had people on the air. I mean, we had the clips. The clips came through the radio station. Fat Joe came through the radio station. Lupe Fiasco. I interviewed Eddie Griffin. You know what I'm saying? So, like, we were a student station, but we were making some moves. We did an event called 5 Days of Fire, which was a talent show. And 5 Days of Fire, it was like an elimination type of talent show. Like every week, somebody would win, and then at the end, everybody competed. Yep. And the winner got to open up for this guy named T.I. and this guy named Killer Mike and this guy named Bone Crusher, because at the time they had a hit song. Bone Crusher had a hit song called Never Scared. And so when we did the 5 Days of Fire, the winner got to open up for Bone Crusher and Killer Mike and them. And what was really cool about that was it was like we kind of curated the first ever live performance of that song, you know, at the Variety Playhouse.
Yeah. I'm interested to know, like, that's a lot for some students, right? Like, and I want to know, like, what do you think was kind of the reason why it took off so much? And like you said, because it was you all doing it. Yeah. But do you think that was well needed, that was something that people couldn't wait to do, and it just took some time, or it just took students like you all to say, come on, like, let's go ahead and get it done?
Yeah, we had to kind of, people were like kind of disconnected. And it was like, nah, man, we in here, like, we got a club. This is our club, and we got camaraderie and friendships and all that great stuff.
I heard you saying, like, they were disconnected, and as you said, when you came, you realized that, you know, people really weren't messing with the radio station that much. So what kind of was the political climate during the time on campus? What was happening at this time on you all's campus, or even in the city of Atlanta?
Well, of course, I mentioned the Olympics. That was my first year, and the Olympics happened in '96, and after that, it blew up. It was like Atlanta became that spot. Even the music, you know, again, like I mentioned, Outkast, Goody Mob, like all of that is what I think attracted people. And I think I'm getting off your question a little bit. Can you ask me that again?
Yeah, just what was the political climate on campus, and what was happening in Atlanta during these times that you all were starting up WSTU?
You know, I would say just a lot of musical movements. Of course, the 2000s were very interesting because it was like when hip-hop really started really getting money.
And that's also when you kind of first became the fill-in announcer for WCLK. So
that's right,
you were stepping in as everything is also in a big transition at this time as well, right?
Yes. And that was a trip too, because they weren't putting students on the radio.
Right.
They were not doing that. Now, they put me and Jamal on the radio because we just had this professional thing about us. You know, the way we knew how to deliver on a jazz station. Like, you know, sometimes you have different tones and different things. And we knew, and not only that, we were in love with the music. We loved jazz music because hip-hop samples so much jazz. So we ended up finding the original, you know, Tribe Called Quest samples Ron Carter, bassist Ron Carter, and then we hear the original thing by Ron Carter. We're like, wait a minute, that's Tribe.
I heard that, right?
Yeah, and it's like, nah, that ain't Tribe, that's Ron Carter, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
How did it feel to be in the station, knowing that you were a student and knowing that this wasn't an opportunity that other students were getting? How did it feel?
It felt really good because they care about you. I got to sit with the DJs, DJs like Ken Beatty, Ken Rye. Of course, I mentioned Jamal. I sat in with him. And Gospel, Rodney Evans, and Wandlin Stokes. And you know, and you get to sit with these people and watch what they do. And you soak it up. And they give you tips and pointers, and you get to just really soak it up. And so that's what I did. I think I always gravitated towards older people. You know what I'm saying? So, and I think older people kind of took me in because they're like, oh, he's a respectable young man. You know what I'm saying? So it's always funny. But jazz music, older people, I feel like that I've always wanted that knowledge. So I always kind of put myself around people that were older than me and had more knowledge.
When I'm thinking about kind of you now in the station and doing your thing there, I'm interested to kind of know, so what else does this journey look like while you're in school, while you're at college? What else are you doing? What are you trying to do? Where are you trying to go while you're in college? Because I know you said that you didn't finish your last year. So what did...
Well, no, I did finish.
Oh, you finished afterwards.
Yeah. I dropped out and came back.
Yeah. So what did the rest of that college journey look like for you?
Well, I started making money. And when I started making money, I think I was working multiple jobs. I was working at the radio station. I was working at, I was putting together a syndicated radio show called the HBCU Sports Report. I was doing that with Rosine Bailey, who actually hosts a show called Blues Time in the City, currently on KPVU, and another big mentor of mine, Rosine Bailey. And we were producing a show, so it was like that. I was a DJ at a strip club, so that was like another thing. And it was like I had like 4 jobs like all at once, and I'm like running around hustling and everything, you know. And so I was
Knowing that you work with, or knowing that you kind of do gravitate to older people and like doing all of this as a college student, but also gaining these mentors, what was some of the best advice that you can remember that you had received at this time as a college student?
Okay, so radio. I got an opportunity my first time to be on the radio, and I didn't know really what to do. I was my favorite DJ at the time was Ken Beatty, rest in peace, and I basically did my best Ken Beatty impression when I got on the radio. And the funny part about it is, you know, you get both sides of it. You know, some people call you and they say, "Man, who is this? Where Ken?" You know, and then you get some people calling like, "I hear you, young brother. I hear you trying to do something. I hear you." You know, so you get both sides, and that was an opportunity to get on the air. But so I basically was trying to do Ken, right? So the program director pulls me into the office after the show was over, and he was Ben Casey was his name, and he said, you know, when I put you in the studio, I put you in there because I wanted to hear you. We already have him. I want to hear you. And that shook me a little bit because I was like, what is me? What am I?
Who am I?
Who am I? So basically what I said, man, all right, no, you got to go back. You got to go back to school. And when I say go back to school, I don't mean physically going back to school. I mean, you know, studying, learning. And so what I started doing was listening to other radio stations and other formats too. I used to love Z93. That was a classic rock station, and there was a lady on there. Her name was Mara Davis, and I thought Mara. I loved her breaks because she always was kind of like in and out. She would kind of hit the points, and it was very cool. She never stuttered or made a mistake and nothing like that. So I started kind of studying Mara. I would take her breaks and rewrite them to fit me. Because what I noticed, she did middays at the time, and what I noticed is that middays was a little more chill than mornings. You know, mornings is like, hey, gotta get everybody to wake up, and then afternoons is a little more hype too, but middays was a little chill. So that's what I learned. I had to go back to the drawing board. When he told me he wanted to hear me, I had to figure out who me was. And so what I found out was that there's always a structure, and then there's creativity. It's best to have both in a balanced kind of way, because if you just have a structure, it's going to be boring. If you just have creativity, it's going to be all over the place. So I looked at Mara's breaks and I said, what is the structure of these breaks? And what I found out was that, what is she saying? She comes in, she says the name of the station, she says the frequency, the slogan. She told us what song was just playing. She told us what time it is. She said we're giving away tickets. It's an Eagles winning weekend. You know, she did all that, and she got out of there. So I took that. I wrote it down. I wrote down what she had, and I just changed it all to fit my format. Because I just changed it all to fit my format, and I think it worked. I think you know what it did? It took the guessing game out of it for me. Because sometimes, you know, we overthink a lot of things, and I think what it did was when I saw the structure of it, I said, okay, I could do this. All right. And it's like, you almost got to like humble yourself a little bit. It's like you got to check yourself a little bit and know that you ain't the one, all the time.
I'm glad that you're saying all of this. I think that is something that we all, in whatever field we're in, that is something like we all almost always have to do, where it sounds odd, but sometimes we do have to humble ourselves in a way where it's like, it's okay to still be in a position to learn. It's okay to be teachable.
It's okay to not know.
It's okay to not know, and it not be a bad thing, right?
Absolutely.
So I love to hear that. Tell me a little bit more about, some of those other people who you were kind of like looking toward to kind of get a better sense of kind of yourself. And then in that, so basically can continue telling me more about, some of the people you probably studied.
Okay.
But then tell me about how learning some of these skills helped translate into more work that you were doing after college, getting into or getting your first steps into your own career.
Oh yeah. After college, I again, like I mentioned, I was working at all these different places. But after college, I got a job, like literally like on the day. It was like the day I graduated or something. It was something crazy. It was like I got a call like that day. It was like, hey, can you come for an interview? And I was like, oh, man, this timing is great. Big shout out Gene Ross. That's who gave me a call. And I can't remember the other. I want to say Nina Love. I can't. But anyway, they interviewed me right after I got out of school. And they had me working with the AM talk station where I got to work with different personalities. And working in talk radio, it gave me like a real different perspective, because WLK was a news and talk radio station, and it dealt with black issues. And I wasn't aware of all of these issues before I worked on the station, because I didn't really listen like that. But when I worked there, I just became aware of like all this stuff going on in the black community and stuff I just didn't know, So that was so WAOK had me producing. Actually, I was producing with my first show. I think was called Court Radio, with Natalie Neighbors. And it's Court Radio. And then I started producing a show called Keep It Moving with Kaz Carson. And that show was wild. And then I met Shelley Winter. And so I started producing Shelley Winter's show. It's called a show called The Right Side. And then I met Lorraine Jock White. And she had a show called Power Talk. And Derek Bozeman, and Too Much Truth. It's like, so I produced all of these shows. And I'm working at 2 radio stations at the same time. So not only am I producing these shows over here, but then I'm over here. So it was crazy. It was like crazy to work at WAOK. And the crazy part too was I got that position. What kind of helped me was being proactive. And there was a show up there called The Pleasure Zone, and I would I would call up there and I would ask them, what are y'all going to talk about today? And they would kind of tell me, we're going to talk about AIDS in the black community. So I would take my mic and I would go around campus and I would talk to everybody. What do you think about AIDS in the black community? And then I would take that and I would go to their show and I would wait for them. And then when they came to the show, I would just hand them a little disc. And what they did was they made a segment out of it called Street Beats, where, we went out on the street and talked to people, and this is what they had to say. And I was the one that was getting it, but, it was sounding like they were the ones that was out on the street and everything. And so one day I was just like, I didn't feel like doing it that day. I was tired or something. And they called me and it was like, you coming? And I was like, yeah, sure, And so when I got up there, I was like, man, y'all need to just go ahead and just put me on y'all show, you know what I'm saying? And so they had me working with them for a while, and then I worked with all those other people. But just, being proactive, what does a show need and what can you provide? You know what I'm saying? Because everybody needs something.
And so let's stay there, right? Everybody needs something. And so eventually KPVU needed you, right? Eventually you had to come over here and contribute and figure out, what is it that you can do and how you can make your move here and ultimately make it your own, right?
Yeah.
We talked a little bit earlier about this when we first kind of mentioned your journey over here. Tell me, what was your relationship to KPVU if any, or just Prairie View in general? What was your relationship, if you had one, to them beforehand?
I had never heard of Prairie View. Okay, I did hear about Prairie View. I heard about it one time, and that was because I was producing a show called the HBCU Sports Report. And so we would cover some Prairie View games, you know what I'm saying? But I didn't know I didn't know where it was or anything, and but I don't really have a relationship with Prairie View I didn't have one before I came here, My dad's side of the family, he's from New York, but his mom is from Beaumont. It's from Beaumont, Texas. So when I was young, I always used to come through Houston, and we would go to Beaumont and all that kind of stuff. So there was always a connection to Houston. Now that I'm here, sometimes I still to this day be like, I'm in Houston. You know what I'm saying? Like I'll be riding down the highway and it'll be like Houston. I'll be like, I'm in Houston.
And so you're in Houston now, and we, like you say earlier, you talked about Mr. Hughes, right?
Yes.
And how, fortunately enough for Mr. Hughes and for Prairie View, he's the reason you're over here, and he's kind of the
liaison.
I was just going to say liaison, but yeah, he's the liaison for you to be here. Talk to me about kind of your first experiences coming over into Prairie View.
Okay. 2018, I was leaving Atlanta. I was very excited, about leaving Atlanta. Actually, you know what? I wasn't leaving Atlanta. I was moving to Houston, but I was keeping my place in Atlanta because I thought I was going to be like, I'm going to be going back and forth. I'm going to be home in Atlanta, and I'm going to be chilling in Houston. No. When I said I was going to do that, people was like, why will you do that? You got money like that?
I was gonna say, even me sitting here thinking like, okay, cool.
I tried it. I did it for about a couple months, and I was like, nah, I need to go all in for Houston.
Yeah, was there something that you besides the job, but was there something holding you kind of like deeper, holding you closer, holding you tighter? Yeah.
Just my support system. I had been there forever. I've been there for almost 20-something years. And but I was really excited about something new.
Okay.
I was excited about something new. I wanted to change of pace. I was ready for a change of pace.
And so, yeah, you get here.
Oh, okay. So I get here, and first thing, it's hot. It was hot. I was like, ooh, it's hot. But the first thing was kind of getting familiar with the culture a little bit, and so meeting people, and I met a lot of the students when I first got here, and the feeling. Let me think about this. When I first got to Prairie View, I did feel like out of place a little bit at first, because you just feel like you got to figure out like how does things go down around here? How do things happen around here? And then
was it easy for you to learn how things were happening around here when you got here? Were you able to kind of educate yourself a little bit more on its history alone, or was it like slow and steady as you continue to really get into the job?
It was kind of slow and steady.
Okay.
It was kind of slow and steady. I've gotten since I've been here, I've learned so much about Prairie View. I've been here 7 years, so we learned a lot about it. But it was pretty steady. My manager was really about the heritage music. So he really was all about the history of Prairie View, the city of Prairie View, and so it took me a minute, I think, to kind of figure it out. I didn't know who to talk to, and I don't want to say I hate to say, but it seemed like when John passed, a lot of things started opening up. And I met so many people after he passed away. Like, I almost feel like, maybe I was like in the office and I wasn't getting out as much, but him passing away, it like forced me to have to get out as much, and it even forced me to have to work with the budget for a little bit. You know what I'm saying? So I had to be in the offices with some of these people. So a lot of things I learned so much. It sounds so crazy, but I learned so much after he passed. I found out things I didn't know about. That kind of thing. Sometimes managers will kind of keep this, I do this, and that kind of thing. And so, John used to keep things kind of close to the hip. But after a while, I think we really found a real good sweet spot. The station was a jazz station when we first came, and we were able to kind of flip the format to a little bit more of a R&B kind of neo-soul kind of thing. We still play jazz music, we still play gospel, we still do all that, but we wanted to kind of flip it into something that's a little more modern.
Yeah, I was going to ask, tell me a little bit about that decision to kind of go in and start tweaking the format a little bit, like what was kind of your thought process into going into it? I know you were saying it now, but yeah.
Well, I wanted to get the station jumping. I want to get it sounding better too, because I'm all about it sounding good and sounding better. So that means that we need to do imaging and production and all those kind of things, and that's my strong point. My strong point is production and voiceovers and producing spots. So yeah, that was. I'm sorry. I'm like losing my train of thought.
You're good. You're answering. Yeah. Kind of why and how you thought about changing the format.
Yeah. So and we did change the format. Was all right. So we were working with the Corporation for Public Broadcasting at one time, and we had received a grant from them to create a new format. And we actually we weren't able to fulfill that because we were short on staff. It was like a staff shortage. And so, but we just still went ahead with kind of changing the format. And what John wanted was, he wanted a really diverse playlist. Okay. He wanted, he was part Cuban. Mm-hmm. So he liked, Cuban music, Latino. Mm-hmm. That kind of music.
Tell us a little bit more about kind of going through that process of you all doing the switch and him saying, this is what I want, and I know you will be the one who can do it. Yeah. Talk to me about that, because that's what I was talking about, that article where it's just like, he sang your praises. It was like, all thanks to you. You've done a great job with what you've done so far. So, yeah, tell me a little bit about how those conversations were going.
Oh, man, it was cool. John was tough, man. He was tough. It was tough sometimes because he really wanted perfection. He wanted things to be good. He wanted stuff to be like, he just wanted stuff to be great, And so he was kind of hard. He would be kind of hard on me, He would be like, all right, Mark, I heard this song,
Can I ask you, why do you think that was?
I think that was his management style.
Okay.
I think his management style was, you can always do better.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. You can always, we can always add more music. We can always, you can always do better. Even when you do good stuff, it's like, yeah, man, that's cool, but we can always do better. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And so sometimes, sometimes you don't want to hear that, you know what I mean? But sometimes, a lot of times you understood where he was coming from. He knew that. He's seen great things happen in radio. So he knows that it's possible. Anything's possible.
Yeah. And so like you were saying, those conversations were going great, and that, tell me how the mural came about. So in going through all of the changes, the formatting, programming, when did the mural start getting discussed to talk about, the different artists that's on that mural and what you all did with
on the website?
Mm-hmm. By using that as your all symbol.
Absolutely. Shout out to Darielle Andrews from Chicago, because she designed our logo, and I believe she designed that too. Okay. And so that was a representation of what you hear on KPVU. And even at the time, the president, when I first came here, was Dr. Ruth Simmons. Okay. And Dr. Ruth Simmons, she has she was a great president, and she's just an all-around great person. and her son, Kyrie Cabral, is a dynamite bass player. So, we were already supporting Kyrie in Atlanta, but then I come down here to work at Prairie View, and Kyrie's mom is the president.
Yeah. Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So that was kind of crazy. It felt like that was a good look in a sense. Like, we always kept in touch with Kyrie. Kyrie would always, talk to his mom about us, and so it was just kind of cool that the president was a friend of ours. Mom. Even John knew Kyrie. Yeah. So we were like, oh man, this is about to be good for us. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, Dr. Ruth, man, she was the president when we came here.
And so, like you said, the mural is one to kind of just really symbolize diversity. It's
and that's why I brought it up, because Kyrie is on that mural, and if you look at that mural, you'll see Erykah Badu, you'll see Ari Lennox, and all these different people. But you'll also see, you might see Aretha Franklin on there. Right. John loved Aretha Franklin. You know what I'm saying? He loved Aretha. He loved all kinds of Cuban music.
Shout out to Aretha Franklin. Memphis loves Aretha.
He loved Aretha. I remember Amazing Grace. That was his joint. There was a movie or something called Amazing Grace that came out. He was like, man, we need to do a premiere. We need to play that here. So yeah. So he loved Aretha Franklin. He loved Zydeco music. He loved the blues, because we play all of that on KPVU. The blues, gospel music, the blues and gospel music, are really like foundations of a lot of black music. So he wanted to make sure that we got that in, that people, when they listen to the station, they know that this is our music, And so his slogan at the time was the art of soul. And what that was about was soulful music. He comes from Atlanta, a real soulful place. And there was Jamal Ahmad has a show. His show is called The Soul of Jazz. And he spells it SOUL, the sounds of universal love. And so, John was all about just great music, great information. He really wanted the station to really level up. He wanted the station to be heard in Houston proper. And I think that was an issue too, because we don't have an antenna in Houston. Okay. We cover the greater Houston area, but we don't cover Houston proper. And so, and of course, that's why we encourage people to check out kpvu.org. But we don't cover the city. So he wanted to really get an antenna in the city proper. And so he really worked hard at that. And it didn't really come to be, but there's still some ideas in the works on that. But, he really wanted the station to be heard in the city of Houston.
And to be heard in the city of Houston, you have to kind of pinpoint who is the listener. So tell me, who is the ideal KPVU listener?
That's a good question. I would say the ideal KPVU listeners are, well, one, these are music lovers, like people who love music. I would say the demographic might be between the students and the staff, because I get it from both. I get some students that say, hey, I heard such and such on the radio, and then I'll get a staff member that may say, hey, I heard such and such. So I would say it's really not, it's like a big demographic almost, progressive, upwardly mobile, black folks, but even Latino people, because we have one of the longest running Latino programs called Latino USA. And we've been running that show for many years. And Maria Hinojosa is the host of that. And so it kind of attaches us to our Latino audience. Yeah. So our gospel, we have our gospel audience as well. And then we also do talk programming, public affairs programming, things like that. Public affairs. It's Been a Minute. That's a show with Brittany Luce, who's a sister, and she hosts a show on KPVU. Cafe Mocha with Lonnie Love and Yo-Yo and Angelique. So Lonnie Love is an alumni of Prairie View A&M. And she is a comedian, entertainment megastar. And Yo-Yo is a rapper, former rapper, and she is like, you can't play with my Yo-Yo. And then Angelique, who is also the producer of the show, and they host a show called Cafe Mocha on KPVU. And so it's good to have an alumni hosting a show on KPVU, and especially alumni like Lonnie Love and so many great alumni from Prairie View. And so we just try to incorporate them in this things.
You talk about, well, like we know about a little bit of everything. Like we know now how you've gotten here and kind of like those influences in your life as well and some of the people who have helped you along. But I'm curious to kind of know more about how you feel about, some of your first experiences here coming over to Prairie View. When you initially got here, what was one of maybe the main things you initially wanted to first start touching on or working on?
Honestly, I just wanted John to be cool. Like, that was really what I wanted to do. I just wanted John to be, like, cool.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Gosh, man, I'm not trying to do this again. But when he, right before he passed away, he went to, he almost did, like, a tour. Mm-hmm. He went to these conferences and, the PRPD and all these different conferences. And one day he called me from one of the conferences, and I was at the station, and he said, "Mark, I was just listening to the station, man." He said, I heard some blues, I heard some hip hop, I heard some R&B," and so I was like, I wasn't sure where he was coming at. I was like, okay, and he was like, "Mark, that's it." He said, "That's it. Keep it right there." He said, "Keep it right there," and it just kind of messed me up because I was like, I never got a compliment like that from him. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I almost felt like, man, what's going on? Hold up, man. Hold up, John. Is this John? Because he was like, that's it. He said, we can keep it sounding like that, because I never heard that from him. It was always kind of like, we got to step it up, man. We got to step it up. And I used to sometimes be like, man, we not good.
I was just about to ask you, did you ever feel that even sometimes in those moments where he was telling you, you got to step it up, but you understanding it's coming from him being just himself. Yeah. But did you ever feel like, I think we're doing pretty good. I don't think we need to do better. Or not necessarily we don't need to do better, but I think we're pretty good where we at.
One thing I would say is that I feel like I brought something different to Prairie View because, again, and I'm not saying like on some bragging stuff, but it's like, we coming from Atlanta where, where Atlanta influences everything, you know what I'm saying? And so I knew that just my approach to things would be different, from people, So even just how I communicate with people, how I meet people, all that kind of stuff, it's just different. And so I just wanted to make sure that I met people, that I knew people, and that I listened to people, listen to them, and see what it is they need. A lot of people wanted the radio station. They want to do things with the radio station. Mm-hmm. And so, and I think that there was a time when it was kind of like, I think John sometimes would be like, I'll work with you if you know something about public radio. And sometimes, your average consumer might be like, hey, how do I get on the radio? And see, John would see those, and he'd be like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he would just be like, you don't know, you don't know about, all this stuff. So, but in a sense, there was an adjustment that kind of needed to be made. It was almost like an understanding that everybody is not a radio person. Yeah. And you got to kind of deal with people where they're at. Sometimes people will be like, I want to do a podcast. And see, John didn't really care for podcasts. You know what I'm saying? Because this is a traditional radio guy. Mm-hmm. So he's like, podcast? We do real radio. You know what I'm saying? And that was kind of like his thing. And the thing about it is, I would tell him, like, hey, John, don't get caught up in the word podcasting. Yeah. It's just a hot word right now. It's a buzzword. The trigger word. But it really is kind of like another form of radio. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So, So I kind of had to I almost feel like sometimes I was a buffer a little bit because John was like, and I love John. John was like, I would call him the no man. No. Hey, can we? No. You know what I'm saying? He'd be like, no. And so, and with well reason. Mm-hmm. And, but what I said after he passed, and, I got a lot of people swarmed in, like, to support me, mm-hmm. But I said, man, you know what? I'm going to be the yes man. I'm going to be the dude that's like, yes.
Yeah.
You want to do something? Yes, let's do it. You know what I'm saying? And that right there changed the whole energy, I think, of the radio station. The strategic partnership. And John was all about strategic partnerships. Strategic partnerships. I think that even the students, they get that from me. And they start partnering. They're learning about collaboration and how to collaborate and how to partner up. Like, partner up if you want to, do a bake sale, well, get with the club that does bake sales, and y'all do it together. And that's what radio, in a sense, does. They get with the people who do it the best, and they let them do it. It's like we don't need to be, the radio station don't need to be baking muffins. You know what I'm saying? We need to be doing radio.
And that's I'll interject right here. Talking about, kind of the transition from Mr. John to you, Mr. John the no man, rightfully so. You, the yes man, not the pushover though. No. But looking at that and thinking about kind of the identity that the station now has and how you have cultivated that station's identity. Talk to me about what did you see? What did you see the station's identity become once you became the yes man?
I saw more people engaging with the radio station. And also I started their social media too, because they didn't have any social media, So I started the Instagram page, and I noticed that the Instagram page gets very high engagement, and that kind of transfers to the radio station. So I can use the Instagram and the Facebook and all that stuff to talk about what we're doing, what KPVU is doing, and I see students engaging. Like, I post last year, I started this thing where I said, you know what? I'm going to keep my stories full every day for a whole year. You know what I mean? And not just stuff, but Prairie View related stuff only. So even on my KPVU page, I only follow Prairie View stuff and alumni and stuff like that. But follow Prairie View stuff. So what happens is my timeline is always full of things that are happening at PV. So I can, and then people appreciate the engagement. Yeah. We're not sharing each other's stuff. Why are we not sharing each other's stuff? All it is just hitting the button and sharing it. If we all did it, it would make a major difference.
Would you say that that's a way that you see this HBCU community is different from others? The tight-knitness of it all? Or what do you think makes the
difference?
Yeah, what's the difference and what makes Prairie View HBCU community different and unique?
Not to say that people didn't love Clark Atlanta University, because we love Clark Atlanta University, find a way to make one. But let me tell you, people here love Prairie View, boy. I'm talking about, I've never been to a campus where everybody is rocking purple, everybody's wearing a Prairie View shirt, a PVAMU shirt. That was kind of different for me to see everybody just representing. People love some PV, and I see alumni love PV, and I see it. I can see that type of that school spirit in a sense. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. And then you got your all this land out here, and that was kind of crazy. Just all this big space, and we walking around to the farm and all that stuff. So yeah.
And how do you think the station itself is valued by the listeners and by that loving community of Prairie View?
I think it's growing.
Okay.
It's growing. We actually had a good ratings a few years ago where we were actually we had a higher weekly cume than Magic 102.1.
Okay.
And it was just for like a year or something. I don't know. But we had Eastland Ratings did a ratings survey. So we're out here in Prairie View. So we're a little geographically challenged a little bit. So we had to go with a company that does ratings and things like that. And so when they gave us our ratings report, what we found out was we had our weekly cume was about 2,500, something like that. And so what that means is that throughout the week, I think you have 2,500 people that will listen for, say, like 5 minutes or more. You know what I'm saying? So it was cool to have actually to be competing with Magic, to be
Yeah.
able to come. It was like a little bragging point. But yeah, we were able to find out numbers and all that good stuff.
Could you tell me about some moments where you felt that the station and the community were like seeing eye to eye at a moment, or this was just a success story for the station and the community? Whether it was an event or, a program that you all aired or something like that. Yeah.
Well, one of the things, too, going back to John,
Mm-hmm.
it was all about programming specials and
Okay.
shows.
Mm-hmm.
Black History Month, what we got?
Right.
Black Music Month, what we got? So-and-so's birthday, what we got? He wanted to acknowledge people's birthday, wanted to acknowledge deaths. When Aretha passed away, we had to do a tribute to Aretha, And then what was the rest of the question again? Okay. I'm sorry. I think I'm getting.
No, you
tripping.
hit it. I was asking about. See, I already got the second question in my head.
Yes.
What did I just ask you? Oh, take a time where the station and the community were seeing eye to eye, and it was a good moment for the station and the community.
When I felt like it was good is when I just felt like we were doing more.
Okay.
Like when we would have a week where we got stuff to do every day, I was like, yo, because marketing communications here at Prairie View, they embraced us as well, So like when they started like really partnering up with us and we started doing like the Panther Zone and all these different events, I think that was one of them things. Like I always see things and I'd be like, man, John would have loved to see this. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so working with Marcom, John used to always want like them to post about KPVU on the website. And for some reason, it just never connected like that. But it's like, not too long ago, there was like something about KPVU on the website. So it was like, dang, John would have loved to see that,
And that's something to be talked about, though, and something to be discussed or kind of like acknowledged, where you have sometimes where the institution itself and the radio station itself are sometimes just disconnected or don't really just have a strong level of transferable information sometimes, where it's like everything that's happening over here, a lot of people won't know if it's not publicized by the institution itself. What do those challenges look like for you all, or has that still been a challenge?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I don't even think it's just Prairie View.
Of course, yeah.
I think universities with the radio stations kind of have a challenge. They're sitting on a gold mine, just like KPVU is a gold mine, and but I think there needs to be some type of, it just needs to be more students on the main station. You know what I'm saying? There's like, there was this thing where it's like, y'all got your own station, this is our station, kind of thing. And you had like some professionals that kind of was like, I'm the professional, you're the student, you know what I mean? And that kind of thing. And I think that kind of vibe needs to change because when I deal with the students at PVU Radio, Student Radio Organization, they are just as professional and as tight as anybody. And if they're not, you can give them tips and they'll get tight. You know what I'm saying? So they're able to compete and everything. So I think that some folks need to have more confidence with putting students on the airwaves. Like, stop trying to keep things separate and all of that. Put the students on the air. I do know that there is structure and there's bills and things got to get paid and all that kind of stuff, and somebody got to handle that. So I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying that let's not assume that they can't do it. Let's give them a shot.
And as we're here talking about HBCU radio and just cultural preservation and what that means and what that looks like, we think about students playing an active part in preservation, being able to be active agents in telling stories, hearing stories first, resonating with them, and then being able to go out and tell those stories. Yeah. How do you think that, KPVU is playing a major part in HBCU radio preservation? And then how would you kind of just describe, or what would you define HBCU radio as?
Okay. I think I'm going to try the first one.
Yeah, let's.
You said,
how is KPVU contributing in cultural preservation as a HBCU radio station?
Oh, okay. I believe so. Because one thing that you hear when you tune into the radio stations, you hear the voices of the people here at Prairie View. One of the slogans that we're kind of looking at is that we actually have been using is your voice, your stories, your station, and we want to give everybody's voice. We want everybody's voice to be heard here on KPVU. It was kind of tough though. Like it's like trying to convince people that you're valuable because radio is radio. You know, it came out in the 20s. You know what I'm saying? So some people are like, oh yeah, I got Spotify, I got this, I got that. You know, I don't need to listen to the radio. I even had students that they say it. It's almost like they say it proudly. I don't listen to the radio. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, well, for one, yes, you do. And then two, there's a lot of money still in radio, like a lot of money. Like people are like, yeah, you know, radio is old. Radio isn't dead. I think radio has to kind of adapt a little bit and really shift to, you know, just something that you can't get anywhere else. And one of the things that you can't get anywhere else is Prairie View A&M University. So it's like we got to get real local. And start really tending to the community. I think for a while, it's like radio and media, it's like it got out there a little bit. It's like it's out there, it's global. But I think we got to get back local a little bit to kind of save the station. But we got to give people what they can't get nowhere else. You know, a lot of the music they can get places, you know. So, of course, we want to give them some good music that they maybe don't hear, or we mix it a certain way or something like that. But we want to give you Prairie View A&M University. When you listen to the station, you hear Prairie View. Staff, faculty, students, workers, all of that.
As you just said, like sometimes people don't realize that the students themselves are the gold. They are the gold, the treasure that you're really hoping to find. Some of those rare gems are most times students.
Yeah.
And talk to me about how do you prepare your students here at KPVU?
Well, I prepared them really the way I was prepared. You know, I told them the same story about Mary Davis, and I actually wrote out the outline. Mm-hmm. And it's an outline that shows you the name of the station, who are you, mm-hmm. Because what I'm trying to get people to understand, some people get it, but I'm trying to get some students to understand that radio is one-on-one communication. Mm-hmm. You know, some people get on the radio, hey, y'all, and it's like, wait, no. If you really want to engage, talk to that one person. You know, if you got to bring a picture in the studio and talk to that, then do that. But it's a one-on-one thing. So don't think about, everybody's listening and they're gonna. No. Just one thing. Just everybody's listening, but you know, for one, they're half listening. When people listen to the radio, they're usually doing something else. So radio is what they call a secondary form of media. So I'm ironing, I'm driving, I'm doing something while I'm listening to the radio. So I'm kind of half engaged a little bit, you know. But so I just tell the students to look at the outline, start off dry. Mm-hmm. Like you don't have to be the funny guy or the this and that at first. Like start off dry. Just do a dry break. 91.3 KPVU, Prairie View A&M University. That was music by so-and-so. You know what I'm saying? Yep. Just like something simple like that. And definitely teach them how to produce. Mm-hmm. Students get hands-on experience. We showing them how to produce spots, how to produce voiceovers and PSAs. They're recording. They're doing field recording where we send them out in the street and say, hey, go talk to this person, go get some drops, and go get this and this, that. So they're hosting. They're hosting events and hosting stuff, so they kind of getting to break their stage fright a little bit. Yep. You know what I'm saying? I speak life into them. You know what I'm saying? I really encourage them to pay attention to the greats. Yeah. I tell them study the greats. All you gotta do is just study the greats. Do you have any? Who's your favorite? Radio star? Oh, I don't have. Well, we need to get one. You need to get one and model yourself after people because you don't have to bang your head against the wall. You know, it's like it's all been done. Yeah, it's all been done. So don't bang your head against the wall. Get the information you need.
And I want you to kind of talk to me a little bit more about, like you said, like you see them kind of breaking out of their shells now, breaking through some of that stage fright. Talk to me a little bit about that transformation you see them having from beginning of a semester to the end of a semester
Oh
being
man,
under you?
it's a trip because they're freshmen.
Yeah.
They first come in. You kind of you don't know. You green and all that stuff. And I love to see somebody come in and just build that confidence over the 4 years. You know what I'm saying? And then when they get to the end of that fourth year, oh shoot, you like, who are you? You know what I'm saying? I had so many students do that. If I try to name them all, I'm gonna forget. Somebody gonna be like, yo, you ain't name me. But the last semester that we had was really good. We had a program, two young ladies called the On Switch, and that was a great show. They used to cover music and different things. There was a show called 60 Years of Black Music that the students did on KPVU. I mean, on PVU, no. And what they did was, excuse me. Excuse me. What they did was they took a decade. Everybody took a decade. Mm-hmm. And they would say, all right, this is the decade. This is what was happening during that decade. And this is the song from that decade. And so they were able to take that and do a radio show. But then they turned it into a live event where they actually had a band and they played these songs. So
that was turn. So
it's like they come in. And then they just gain all of this knowledge. And then when they get out of here, they're ready to take on the world, Yeah, so I see it. I see them. I see the transformation. And it's inspiring.
And so what would you say would be your proudest accomplishment? Is it your students or?
Yeah. They're definitely my proudest accomplishment. I mean, my proudest accomplishment definitely would be the students, but it would just be the collaboration, like all of the different collaborations that we have. I mean, we're sitting in KPVU TV right now. Back in when I first got here, it wasn't KPVU TV. It was PVAMU TV. Mm-hmm. Okay. And they became KPVU TV after some time. And so we've been working together more and doing things and going to conferences and things like that. And so, again, like all the collaboration, because that's what John wanted. He wanted us to be recognized. He wanted people to he wanted to be in rooms with the president of the university and interview them. We was just at the Jazz Festival, the Sugarland Jazz Festival, and I interviewed the president sitting out there at the Sugarland Jazz Festival. Stuff like that, stuff like that. Like he would have loved that, So it's just a lot of great things. But my proudest accomplishment is the collaboration. I mean, we've done NPR Tiny Desk. I think that was a real cool thing. We hosted the tour. So they came and, we were able to bring our band up on stage and do all that. I think that was kind of cool. And we've done collaborations with like Checkers and a lot of event venues and clubs and the Honeyland Music Festival and all these different collaborations. I think that's really what makes me proud.
And talk to me a little bit about why you think that collaboration, like you talked about earlier, that you kind of learned from Mr. John about strategic partnership. Yeah. Why is that important for students? Why is it important for students?
Because it's important for students because two heads are better than one. You know what I'm saying? Somebody might be able to do something better. And so it's like you can't do everything, Right, you can try, and some people may be successful doing everything themselves, but it's like this synergy that's created when you collaborate with somebody. And there's more footwork. Let's say you're an artist or something, you're trying to promote something. Well, if you collaborate with somebody, maybe you can get more promotion. You know what I'm saying? So it's all about not trying to do everything yourself and trying to get with the good people who do what they do and let them do what they do. And so it almost takes weight off of you. Mm-hmm. It's like, look, relax. Let people work together. And when we work together, and then a lot of people are, I don't know if I'm using the right word, but a lot of people are kind of ignorant to the radio station. Mm-hmm. Where they just don't know anything about the radio station. Yeah. And so those people need to be schooled.
Choose not to know. So, ignorance is just the lack of knowledge and choosing not to
know.
Not to immerse yourself in something. And that kind of want to go back to your point earlier about working in talk radio and realizing that you are so disconnected when you aren't sitting and consuming radio on a daily basis, especially talk radio where they're talking about Black issues. They're talking about what's happening community, like specifically in your city or specifically in your state, like learning about those things. But then again, choosing to know about those things is important as well for the audience. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So talk to me now. Let's kind of move along as well, right?
Okay.
I know that all that you have done in your career has ultimately led you here, right? It has, created space for you to be able to create space for more students.
Absolutely.
When we're thinking about HBCU radio and your position as being in a HBCU radio, can you reflect on the state of, from your opinion, your point of view, can you reflect on the state of HBCU radio today?
HBCU radio. Well, us, KPVU is all about, again, training the next generation of media professionals. And that's really the mission. Is
what does that training look like?
Hands-on technical training, using the board, using microphones, and using all the different type of equipment. Yeah. Can you ask me that again? I'm not doing this. I'm not doing well. I'm kind of. It's like I started off good and now I'm getting all dizzy or something.
I was just asking your point of view on.
HBCU radio. Okay. Because what it is, I start talking and I'll be like, wait a minute, what am I talking about?
Saying? Yeah.
HBCU radio needs to. I would say HBCU radio just needs to just keep lifting up the students. Like keep on teaching the students, training them. But it's gonna need some changes. I think the radio stations, in a sense, can be considered labs for students. They could be considered labs. And so I think that might be the approach that some people might want to consider with HBCU radio, is give the students a place for them to be able to do their radio shows and to even bump their head and mess up, but give them a place to be able to do their radio programs, And you know what? And take it even further. Instead of, because see, we try to keep people in a certain place. Like, y'all are kids, so y'all don't need to know about the financial stuff. HBCU radio got to get the kids in on the financial side of raising money and fundraising. That's the thing that needs to change in HBCU radio. It's like they may not feel like golly, I lost again.
They may not feel like
they may not feel like they can do that because they haven't been allowed to get into the budget and all that kind of stuff. But I was just having a conversation the other day where I'm like, you know what, these students they're getting better and better every year. Like, they're getting more mature, and to the point where they're able to, like, you can give them more adult things to do. Going back to John's management style, his management style was a little more like, when you're not here, we lock it down.
Yeah.
We're not having no students up in here without you being here. And I had to change that because if I'm not there, I don't want to stop the momentum.
Right.
I want them to keep on going. So I even went as far as to give certain students a key, because I trusted them and I knew that they would take care of things, they would handle things. Sean would have never gave no student no key. You know what I'm saying? He'd have been like, no. Again, no. So, but I think that I started trusting the students more, and in a sense, they started proving themselves to be more trustworthy.
Yeah. I just lost mine too. See?
Okay. My student is blowing me up right now. Go ahead. I guess he's trying to.
Oh, yeah. We're coming down to getting close to wrapping it up. Right?
Okay, no problem.
And so here I'm more so asking now, kind of still where we at with it about like HBCU radio, kind of like what it can be doing more.
Yeah.
And you just responded to why students should be able to
getting into other parts of the
yeah.
radio station. I mean, even like traffic and continuity.
And I was gonna say, that was.
It's not all just being on the mic.
When you're thinking about right now, when people are hiring out of radio stations, the main thing they want is a salesperson. They're looking. They got enough hosts. They got enough personalities. They got enough producers. They got enough board operators. They need salespeople, and it's almost like I'm with you where universities shy away from allowing students to be a part of kind of knowing about that process because it's kind of like a stay in a child's place kind of energy that it sometimes passes off as. But I 100% agree with you that I do think that this, as an HBCU radio station, is the opportunity for students to be trained in
all aspects.
Can
you write a contract? Like, let me show you how to write a contract.
Can you actually just simply write a script?
Yes, yes.
Can you write in general? Like, do you know how to capitalize and not capitalize? Do you know what to do and how they're supposed to look? And so all of those things matter. I know that for me, coming from my HBCU to going to my PWI to receive my master's, that was completely different. Thank you. Yeah. But those are two completely different experiences, especially with me being able to be the manager at the PWI. And I'm like, these are two completely different experiences. And unfortunately, I'm going to have to bring in my HBCU experience to help students understand the idea of what training is actually supposed to be and not just putting you behind the mic.
Absolutely.
Because at the end of the day, it's representation for the station, for yourself, and then ultimately, like, if you want to use this later on, I'd hope you done a good job, and I hope that you were trained correctly.
Absolutely.
So how do you think that HBCU radios can service their communities better?
More info, more information about. We gotta like not assume people know stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, we assume that, radio's been around for 50, 60, 70 years, so people know about radio. No. We got to almost retrain people in how to engage with the radio. So I think the community, you got to go out in the community. You got to go out there. You got to go out there and meet the people out there, because you might, if you're not serving the people, you might be serving the wrong audience. So I think the HBCUs, the HBCU radio needs to really, again, become more local and more financially sustained.
In doing so, what opportunities do these stations afford Black people?
Again, information. We learn. Education, information, and entertainment. Those three things. We want to make sure that we got a good balance of all of that. So the community is educated on issues that may affect them locally, whether it's agriculture and things like that. And that's why I think that's it. Just providing more information about the history of the HBCU. Like, every hour on our radio station, we have a spot that just talks about Prairie View, like a general spot about Prairie View. And so that's what people need. They need to hear stuff that you don't think that they know. Yeah. So tell the community more about the university and how that works and how we sustain. Some people don't know how public radio stations make money. They think it's just all commercials, but that's commercial radio. And they make money doing their advertisements. We make money sponsorships and underwriting. So that's like, having that knowledge is what the community might need to understand. That the community might even need to understand that, like, for example, the radio needs help too. So, I get people coming to me all the time, and, man, you need to do an interview with me. You need to interview me. You talk to me. People come to me all the time, right? And, sometimes it's valid. Sometimes it's like, yeah, you got, probably. But the thought is always, how does it benefit the radio station? You know what I'm saying? Is interviewing you going to benefit the radio station? Because if I just interview you right now, for one, we didn't even promote it. So nobody's even going to know that you got interviewed. And, you know what I'm saying? So, we want to do things and do it right.
I wanted you to elaborate a little bit more about what do you think, or explaining kind of just the difference between Black radio versus commercial radio.
I would say non-commercial radio.
Non-commercial radio, yeah.
Well, basically, it's all about how they make their money. I think one is direct and one is indirect. Mm-hmm. Public radio is direct. Public radio comes straight to you and they say, do you like what you hear on the station? Well, support it. You support it. They kind of come to you and say, you call us up right now and make a donation and support us. Whereas commercial radio does something a little different, where they say, hey, my friends over here got a spot over here. You should check it out. Mm-hmm. Go over there now. Go now. And see how they say, go right now. Do it now. And that's kind of how they are. There's a thing called call to actions, mm-hmm. and you can't really use call to actions in public radio scripts. So, I can't tell somebody, call this number. I got to say, for more information, the number is, you know what I'm saying? So it's like learning that part of it, learning how to write scripts, because it actually applies to social media as well. Yeah. Because on social media, a lot of people have taken the public radio structure and started, public radio has always been membership campaigns, and they've always been on a tier level system. Mm-hmm. You can come in at this level. And so when you look at sustaining members and you look at things like Netflix and apps and things like that, I'm like, that's really just like the public radio model, And then I look at NPR, Tiny Desk, and I look at it's like, oh yeah, y'all are doing things like public radio does, So because that's what public radio, they get on the radio and they say you can come in at this level. Now, as far as the commercial radio side, they're going to tell you it's going to be some call to actions. They're going to tell you, get up right now and go right now. Get up, stop, put that down, put that on, wear that, drink this, drink that. Yep. You know what I'm saying? And that's what public radio doesn't do. They feel like you guys are intelligent enough to make your own decisions. So I don't need to tell you to do anything. I just need to give you the information and then you make the decision.
100% agreed. 100% agreed. Okay, as we continue, as we're kind of wrapping up still, thinking about just HBCU radio in general and your relationship or the community's relationship to HBCU radio. When we're thinking about what it means to preserve history, and we were talking about our communities and why it's important. What did you say? It is your station, your voice, your stories, your station. Yes. Your voice, your stories, your station. That's right. And when we think about that, and you, like you say, you're thinking about what HBCU radio needs to do to help educate the community. When we think about this project, we're thinking about how these type of things help communities and how these type of things help communities learn and kind of just stay connected to their radio station. So what do you think about how the HBCU Radio Preservation Project is working with HBCU radios?
Well, I think it's really cool to be able to pull out some of these games and some of these old shows and all that kind of stuff and archive it, because this stuff is valuable and content can be repurposed. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what our content, we always need content, but I don't, when you got a room full of CDs and it's like, we're not going to use those. But if you digitize them and put them in a way, it's like, oh, well, maybe we can use them, So it kind of, the HBCU Preservation Project, I think, really helps out with delving into some of our content that may not be getting any shine no more. And, I was just talking to Will down there, and I was just thinking about the games that we have. We have these old games, basketball games, and I was kind of thinking, like, if they can show old basketball games on ESPN2 or whatever, then why we can't play an old basketball game? I mean, of course, we would have to let people know what's going on and who's playing and all that kind of stuff and what this is. This is a throwback basketball game, but I think people would love that. They would love to be able to hear the old players and hear the old players that was, the alumni can hear the old games, and I love that. We have so many radio shows that can be almost revamped. Mm-hmm. It's like it's causing us to go back and listen to some things in the past that may have happened before we came, And so I really appreciate the HBCU Radio Preservation Project.
And talk to me about how we were talking about information a little bit earlier about how the radio station affords Black people information, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of tell me your thoughts on accessibility and, resources for Black communities. Why do you think it's so important for us to have accessibility to history?
Yes. Well, because the future is the history that you don't know. So that's what it really is. Like when you know the past, it helps you make decisions. It helps you make decisions on things. I'm a reader, so I read a lot about old hip hop. I read about 70s, 80s hip hop. I'll be reading about all that stuff because it gives me ideas on what to do now. When you have somebody like one of the first mainstream hip hop songs that blew up, it was actually two of them. It was a song called Rapper's Delight. Of course, you know that one. And then there was another song called King Tim Personality Jock. And that was by a band called Fatback. And so what they did was they made a song and they got a DJ from the radio station to talk on top of the song. He was like rapping. So that was they kind of called it. Because that's what the DJs used to do. They would rap on the radio. And so in a sense, this is like the foundation for hip hop. You know what I'm saying? Is the DJs who were rapping on the radio. So when I thought about that, I said, man, what would be it makes you think about equivalence. What would be the equivalent of putting a radio personality on a song? Because back then it was groundbreaking. But what would be the equivalent? Maybe putting a social media personality on something or something. You know what I'm saying? It's like it gives you ideas with how to move forward when you look at the past.
Really good answers. Thank you so much, Mr. Lofton. Before we close out, is there anything else that, was not mentioned in this interview that you would like to add before we close, or anything else? Any shout-outs you would like to give?
Well, yeah, I'll do some shout-outs. I always want to shout out, my family and all them, my moms and my cousins and all them. I want to shout out my boy Jamal, because that's my group member, the Dangerfeel Newbies. And, again, we're working on some stuff. We got some good music coming, and I'm just really excited about it. And also, we've been doing a lot of personal work to ourselves, you know what I'm saying? I got me a therapist, and I kind of cut some things out of my life, cut alcohol out and all that kind of stuff. And I noticed that it changed my vision. It made me see things a little clearer and things like that. So I'm excited about this new project that me and Jamal are getting ready to drop. Also, I got to shout out Eddie Robinson, who's our general manager of KPVU, Dr. Teresa Dalves, who is the head of the department, and also Professor Tony Clomax. And it's just all the radio people out there that are doing the thing. Keep it up, keep it going, and know that it ain't gonna get done if you don't do it. So you got to do it. It's never gonna happen unless you do it.
That's a word. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Lofton. It is
my
now
pleasure.
before.
That was great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you did that.
Whoa.
You got me going. Boy, you got me crying. What in the world? Now that's the sign of a good interview.
Woo.
You made the person cry. You got
Dang,
some.
stop it.
I
Make sure you
did.
tell Will when we go outside.
I will. Well, he'll hear it. He'll hear it.
It is now 4:30. We are currently still sitting in the podcast studios of KPVU TV. It is still July 8th on a good Wednesday. Did I say the time already? No, let's start that over. Well, it is now 4:30.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lofton, for taking this time out with me to interview and let us collect your oral history and
My
really
pleasure.
just learn who this person is who is leading and training up this new generation of students for HBCU radio. The time is 4:30, and we are about to finish. We are leaving off the campus of Prairie View A&M University in Prairie View, Texas. And this is Kayla Foster.